For more on this issue, I want to welcome on Congressman Devin Nunes, the Republican representing California's 22nd District. So, Congressman, I want to get your word on the earlier preliminary report kind of given by Inspector General Horowitz, where he said that he didn't have confidence that the Bureau's agents are faithfully adhering to the Woods procedure. Really broadly, what was your response to that?
Well, look, none of this is a surprise, Alex, and thanks for having me on, of course, but this has been a problem for a while. We've been identifying the problem. It's part of the reasons why we have to open up Title I of FISA. A lot of people get confused about the expiring provisions as if this just goes away. It doesn't, and that's why we're going to have to clean this up. I don't have a lot of confidence. Matter of fact, I can say I have zero confidence that DOJ and FBI will be able to do this without Congress' direct involvement in the process. And that's why we have to assert our authority. And I'll tell you, we haven't been able to get Adam Schiff on the House Intelligence Committee, where we also have jurisdiction, just like the Judiciary Committee. We've had the same problems. We can't get him to schedule a hearing. They're trying to cover this up because they know that their party used these surveillance activities against the Trump campaign. And we busted them on it, and they don't want to have hearings on it.
And I want to talk about that, too, because some of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, whereas they say that you should not be vindicated, whereas your colleagues say that you, of course, should be. You've been making these calls for months, if not years now at this point. But your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, they say that because these errors are widespread and not limited to someone such as just Carter Page, that it doesn't necessarily show specific wrongdoing or necessarily political involvement or anything like that. What's your response to those claims?
Well, if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you personally and all your viewers. It's impossible to read the text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. It's impossible to look at the comments, the nasty comments coming out of the former director of the FBI, the CIA, the DNI, that are all pundits on fake news media. It's impossible to look at all of that and say that, oh, well, no, these were just the average FBI guys, they were just making mistakes. No, that's not the case. They were clearly targeting the Trump campaign. It just so happens they already knew how to do it because they had been doing it before. So the dirty cops that were in place, who had been basically breaking the rules, violating people's civil liberties, they knew exactly what they were doing. And what this is proof of is they really became experts at dodging the process and not following the rules. And by the time it got to the Trump campaign, they knew exactly what they could do. And if you really look back at that time frame, and I know a lot of your viewers are up to speed on this issue because I hear a lot from OAN viewers, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your show. They know that what this originally was an operation just to spy on the campaign. That's what it really was about. And they wanted to do media leaks so that they could create an October surprise during 2016. That's what they were trying to do. And what happened is once they pushed and pushed and pushed and got this FISA, they were hoping for something on Carter Page that they could leak out to dirty up the Trump campaign right at the end of October, right before the 2016 election. And that's what this is about. So the dirty cops knew exactly how to use the process. That's why Congress has to come in and clean all of this up.
And to your point, too, everybody who's been following this development, they kind of question the idea of just low-level FBI agents kind of acting on their own on an investigation that is so high profile. I mean, they know that they would be under the microscope. It seems very kind of unlikely that some low-level staffer would take this type of drastic unilateral action in order to make these decisions. So a lot of people kind of pointing out that a lot of these actions happened under former FBI Director James Comey during his tenure, along with other big names that, of course, we've been talking about over the span of the past couple of years. So they're kind of saying, does this kind of show maybe a failure of leadership at the time, or was this just some bad actors within the FBI?
Well, that's up to Durham to find out. But if you really go back and look at it, the way that I view this is you had this very senior cops, dirty cops, at the very highest level were the ones, for some reason, were the ones that were able to open up this investigation of the Trump campaign. Now, look, where were those cops before, those dirty cops before? They clearly grew up under this system. So by the time they got to Washington, D.C., they knew exactly what to do and how to do it. So what I would say is we have a civil liberty problem. We have a problem with the FBI not following proper procedure. Some of that falls on Congress. You know, this has been a law that's been permanently authorized, you know, for nearly 35 years. So, that's why it's time for us to open it up. I think get Congress more involved. One of the things that I want in the reforms is going to be for Congress, at least the Intelligence Committee, both Republicans and Democrats, House and Senate, to have full open access to these files at all times. So that way that the American people can have a comfort level that their representatives are able to go in and review those files to make sure that it's not just secret, dirty cops that get to do this. That's essentially what I think the best of all the reforms that's being talked about. That's going to be the key, is to bring the legislative branch of government in on this.
And you mentioned, of course, that we're still waiting for John Durham's report. We don't really have a timeline on when we can expect that, but someone would assume that it would be before November at some point. But until then, there are still some lingering questions regarding this issue right at hand. And because, for example, Democrats have the lower chamber, it seems unlikely that someone like Jerry Nadler, like Adam Schiff, would be willing to bring in Horowitz for a testimony or kind of execute their oversight. Would you like to see some of your colleagues in the Senate maybe try to ramp up their oversight when it comes to these issues?
Yeah, it would be very helpful because you're exactly right. We're not going to see the lighter day of I doubt we ever get to see Horowitz of the House Intelligence Committee, at least for a public hearing. We need to have the Senate. It would be very helpful if they had a hearing every 2 to 3 weeks on this, because we need to get to the bottom of what happened. How did this happen to a political campaign? These are the things that we in the United States, we go to other countries. As a matter of fact, when we actually had a real intelligence committee and we actually went out and met with our counterparts, we'd spend a lot of time talking about having free and fair and open elections and having a process that works, and talking about ensuring that the intelligence agencies weren't being used for political purposes. Now, look how foolish do we look, because it was the Democrats who weaponized our intelligence services. And I understand why the Democrats only want to have a House impeachment committee. They don't want to do real intelligence work, because it's embarrassing to go out and talk to our counterparts like we're supposed to be doing on a daily basis. We're supposed to be working with all of our allies, and some people who aren't our allies, talking to them. What credibility did the Democrats have? I mean, they're the ones who weaponized the system against the Republican Party.
No, and I mean, even the Inspector General has said that this is a deep-rooted problem, and you've been actually at the forefront kind of shedding light on this issue. And for that, we really thank you, and we thank you for coming on tonight and helping to break this down in front of all of our viewers. Thank you very much, Congressman.
Thanks a lot, Alex. Thanks a lot for having me.